Welcome once again to another phenomenal episode of Doors of the Universe podcast. I am coming to you this week. It has been a very busy week, very time consuming at work. There have been some changes. There's been a lot of changes, and I am now somehow program manager at my job, which means I oversee everyone within our village as far as staff. So that is an update. That's new. That's exciting. That comes with a different schedule and different hours. So instead of my normal Sunday through Wednesday I was working, I'll be doing Monday through Friday. I'll be back on the grind. So that's some exciting news, but it is also something that means I will be busier and not overall busier, but I am still going to make time for you, the listener. I am going to be continuing making content, and honestly, it should work out fine, because I'll be getting off work earlier. I'll have time to do research and stuff during those a couple hours when I'm off earlier than normal, the weekends and stuff. But do not think this advancement in my career will be a devancement in this podcasting. I will still be coming to you on hopefully a bi-weekly basis. That's what we've been shooting for lately, and bringing you some of the best content about all things cryptid. Not all things just cryptid. It's been a lot of cryptids. We're going to have a lot of cryptids because I love cryptids. But just a mix of everything, cults, conspiracies. We're going to start mixing more in the mix. I gotta get them added on to my Wheel of Destiny, as I like to call it, which is the app I use where I just add topics into it, and then I hit the button, and it decides for me what this next episode is going to be about. It's been an exciting, busy week, and I'm excited to be here, being able to sit down, step away from work for a little bit, and just kind of do what I love doing. Though I will say I do have one of my current employees does ask me every time he sees me what the cryptid of the day is. So he is definitely keeping me on my toes, keeping me engaged in looking for more new cryptids. Which brings us to today's topic. I spun the Wheel of Destiny, and our current, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a cryptid. It is more of a mythological creature, but it was one, I don't know how I came across it. I don't remember. Half the time what happens is, before having the Wheel of Destiny, I would just I had a notepad in my phone, and I would just write down, I'd see something I'm like, ooh, that's cool, I want to look more into that. And then I would put it in my notepad, not especially having any real context connect to where it came from or how I came about it. But yeah, that's where all the original ideas for podcast episodes were stored. And I'm going to figure it out. I think I've told before, but I would like to have the proper name. Daily Decision is the name of the app I use that is free to just make some, and it doesn't have to be this. You can put anything you want in there. Not sure what you want for dinner? Add a couple ideas to the Wheel of Decision. Let it pick for you. But yeah, the Daily Decision is what I've been using, which I have been referring to as the Wheel of Destiny, because it just looks like it looks kind of like a Wheel of Fortune type thing where it spins around and then it picks something. So this week, I'm not going to lie to you, this is probably going to be another very short episode. Maybe we'll call them Cryptid Quickies. Something that there is not a lot of information on, but they are still worth noting and worth being aware of. And you can say it's just, great for conversation later on if you're at the bar or whatever, trying to have bring up some new topics, I guess. I don't know. Either way, today's cryptid, which, like I said, I don't think this is a cryptid. This is more of just a mythical creature. I wish I had more information on this. I really do. The information I had was very limited. There was a lot of, again, much like the giant Congo snake on the last episode, it was a lot of overlapping information on most of the websites I went to. And some very varying information on the sites I went to. So either way, let's get into it. So this week's Cryptid Quickie is coming to us from Germany. This is the Elwetritsch. That is Elwetritsch. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I looked up a couple videos, a couple podcasts. Didn't seem like we had any real Germans doing these. So I apologize if I'm pronouncing the nation's bird incorrectly. It's not actually the nation's bird. The Elwetritsch, or plural, Elwetritschen, is a bird-like legendary creature which is reported to be found in southwest Germany, especially in the Palatinate. The Elwetritsch can be seen as a local equivalent to mythical creatures of other regions, the Bavarian Walpertinger, or Thuringian Rasselbach, which we will actually, I looked into that, and we'll do a little episode on at least one of the two, probably both. But yeah, so this bird-like legendary creature, which comes from Germany, is part of the Palatinate. So the Palatinate, if you were unfamiliar as I was, is a historical region, or the Rhenish Palatinate, is a historical region of Germany. Prior to World War II, it was known as Rhenish Bavaria. As a state of the Holy Roman Empire, it was known as the Lower Palatinate, which designated only the western part of the electorate of the Palatinate, as opposed to the Upper Palatinate. It occupies roughly the southernmost quarter of German federal state of Rhineland-Palatinate, covering an area of 2,105 square miles, with about 1.4 million inhabitants. Its residents are known as Palatines. Alright, so now you know about where this creature lives, where it's from in Germany. Let's talk about appearance. So this was one of the areas where there was a little more discrepancy on its looks. Overall, there was the chicken-like creature. So, but unlike your average chicken, it does have antlers. And instead of having feathers, it has scales. It does have wings, but it says they're of little use. So I'm going to assume it's a flightless bird, like it's our other fine flightless birds like ostriches, penguins. And it lives in underbrush or vines. One common feature that did come across most description was a very long beak. To say it antlers, it says antlers of a stag. So there's that to give a little better visual. 20th century, second half of the 20th century, things got a little weird. Artists increasingly portrayed Elwetritschen as female by adding breast. So yeah, if you look up some of the pictures of the sculptures or paintings done of the Elwetritsch, most of them will have, and not like chicken breast, like human female breasts. So where does the Elwetritschen originate from? This was another topic that was questionable, kind of like just seemed it was different among them. The most common, though, oddly enough, the most common was that supposedly they originate from crossbreeding chickens, ducks, and geese with mythical wood creatures such as goblins and elves. So yeah, just that's an image I don't need, but it's there. I'm sure there's a kink out there for everybody, and for whoever came up with the Elwetritsch, we know what yours was. So yeah, goblins, elves, chickens, ducks, and geese. Okay, yeah, so that's your origination. The Elwetritsch had been forgotten for a while until a gentleman named Espenscheid rediscovered them. He began to organize hunting parties, which were harmless pranks. One of the barbarian kings was once served roasted small bird for dinner, which were declared to be Elwetritsch. In Pennsylvania, among the Pennsylvania Dutch, and as my grandfather would say, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. The Elwetritsch is known as the Elwetritsch. So that's Elbedritsch. The lore concerning the Elwetritsch is similar to that of the Elwetritsch, in that the victim of the trick was set out with a bag to catch one and then left abandoned. Perhaps you've heard of snipe hunting. I don't know if that's just a Midwest thing, but the Pennsylvania Dutch are convinced that the Palatinate people, their biggest group of ancestors, had taken some of the Elwetritsch, so they wouldn't be homesick. Tales of the Elwetritsch are also documented in Amish communities. The newsletter of the Pennsylvania German Society is S. Elwetritsch. So as far as I can tell, the Elwetritsch is the same as Elwetritsch. But yeah, the Pennsylvania Dutch believed that they had brought them over so they would not become homesick. So all my people on the East Coast, keep an eye out. There are Elwetritsch and Elwetritsch just roaming around loose. And yeah, stay on your toes. So the hunt, which we had talked about earlier, where I mentioned the snipe hunt. The idea of the hunt of the Elwetritsch is very similar to a snipe hunt. The Elwetritsch is supposedly very shy, but also very curious. A hunting party consists of a fonger, a catcher, equipped with a big potato sack and a lantern, and the trieber, the beaters. The catcher is led into the woods where the Elwetritsch is supposed to live, instructed to wait in a clearing with his sack and lantern while the beaters go off, supposedly to flush out the Elwetritsch. The light of the lantern is said to be attractive to the curious creatures, so will come to investigate and will then be caught by the catcher. While he waits, everyone heads back to the pub or wherever the party had previously assembled to wait for the catcher to realize that he has been fooled. So the snipe hunt is going out snipe hunting. And if you're young and haven't been hunting much and don't know much about the hunt, telling someone that you're hunting snipe, and then usually you just have them get out, get back in the car, and then take off. It's very cruel. It's very unusual, and it's a trick. I personally have never been involved in a snipe hunt, but I have heard stories. So like the jackalope, the Elwetritsch is thought to have been inspired by sightings of wild rabbits infected with the Shope papilloma virus, which causes the growth of antler-like tumors in various places, including on the head. Which I did look up some pictures because I didn't see any chickens with the Shope papilloma virus, but I did see some of the wild rabbits with it, and it is a sad sight to see. Definitely looks like something you wouldn't want to come across in the woods. Might be the nature of lore, if you will. So yeah, that's what goes on with the hunt of it's basically it's a prank. The hunt is a prank. So don't ever go on a snipe hunt. Don't ever go on an Elwetritsch hunt. Don't go on a hunt, period. I'm vegan. What am I saying? Don't go on a hunt. Let them live. Let them live their lives. Elwetritsch, jackalopes, all of them. Just let them live, do their thing. They ain't harming you. We have no need to harm them. As we were. So traditions. There are clubs in several Palatinate towns and cities that promote the myth of the Elwetritsch. The Elwetritsch Club in Landau, formed in 1982, is the oldest club. A square dancing club from the same city calls its annual dance special the Landauer Elwetritsch Jagd. Landauerian Elwetritsch Hunt. There's also an Elwetritsch Academy in Pirmasens, a college for Tritzology in Dan. I'm going to look that up for two reasons. One, how to pronounce it, what it means. So I'm not sure if trichology is the same as trichology. I don't believe so, but trichology is the study of disease or problems related to the hair and scalp, as well as their treatment. But I think, because it's not spelled the same, but because when I tried to figure out what trichology is, I'm assuming it's the study of triches, like the Elwetritsch. I don't know. I looked it up. Google didn't give me an answer. The world is coming to an end now. There is something I have found that I don't know, but trichology, and that is in Dan, D-A-H-N, and an exhibition with figures of the mythical creatures in the Landauian Zoo, as well as in the zoo in Kaiserslautern. It looks like Kaiserslautern. But if you go into the Palatinate region, there are several monuments erected for the Elwetritsch. There's a fountain, an educational trail, a hiking trail, a monument in the municipal park, and a local carnival club that uses Elwetritsch as the mascot. That's in Dan, D-H-N. Yeah. There's a couple fountains in other cities as well. A local brewery, Bischoff, uses Elwetritsch as its mascot in Winweiler. But yeah, I am sorry, but that is all the information I have regarding Elwetritsch. A mythological chicken-like creature that is bred from crossbreeding of elves and goblins. I mean, that in itself that should just be enough to just make you want to learn more about it. But either way, I have looked and dug as far as I can, trying to find it. But that is the information I found on Elwetritsch. I really hope I haven't been pronouncing the name of it wrong this entire time, but it is German, and I believe I have a little German in me, not much, but enough that I should pronounce that correctly. Elwetritsch. What do you think? Have you heard of the Elwetritsch before? Was that a fun little exploration of Elwetritsch? I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found this informative. I know there are not a lot of podcasts out there on it. I know there are not a lot of YouTube videos on it. So hopefully this will add and bring a little more focus to Elwetritsch and its origins and a little bit of German folklore, I guess. But that's all I got. I told you it's going to be a short one. There's not a lot of information, and I think this is just how we're going to do it. I will do whatever the Wheel of Destiny tells me, and then I will research, and if it's a short one, it's a short one. If we can be a little bit longer, we'll make it a little bit longer. But honestly, like, some of the topics on the list are just not going to have a lot of information about them, but that's not to say they're not worth mentioning. So, and by looking up this one, I got an idea for another episode. So, not all bad, Elwetritsch. Germany, you did good. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. That is all I have on Elwetritsch. But what else we do have are our socials. You can find it at Linktree, which is linktr.ee/DOTU podcast, which is on all of my socials I have currently. You can find it on, there's a link for it on the homepage of my Twitter, Instagram, maybe on Spotify. If not, I'm on Spotify. Anchor.fm. So that is no longer. It is now Spotify for podcasters. So everything will be going through Spotify when I upload and do everything. I told you I'd find that out on the last episode that, yeah, that is what is happening. That is the switch that has been made, which so far I haven't noticed any difference. It seems to be doing just as well. Seems to be might be even doing a little better since switching over to that. All I can ask is, if you like the episode, tell a friend. If you want to support financially, there are options through Patreon. You can Venmo me directly at DOTU Podcast on Venmo. Just put a message in there that it's for the podcast. You enjoy the podcast, you want to try and support it. I have a few things I do want to get for the podcast to make the recordings better. But overall, just listening, just sharing it with your friends, that's going to help the podcast grow. So yeah, if you see a friend who's into cryptids or someone you know that's into cryptids and you like this episode or any of the other episodes, share them, send them their way. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting in any way you do. It is appreciated. I love doing this. Like I said, it's going to be, my time is going to be a little more weirdly constricted, but I still would be making time for this podcast because this is my I guess it's a form of therapy for me, just getting it out there, being able to talk about the things I like to talk about. And I'd love to hear from you. You can get a hold of me on dotupodcast@gmail.com. I think, not sure if the voicemail option is still a thing on Spotify for podcasters. I will look more into that and see if that is an option. But you can message me on Instagram, on Twitter. I'm more on Instagram than I am on Twitter. To be honest, I'm more active on Instagram, just as far as being on there more often. But get a hold of me and let me know if there's something you'd like me to cover on an episode, something that I could do a little research on, something, hey, I might not even know about. I'm learning every day. There's new stuff out there every day. The more I listen to podcasts, the more I dig a little deeper. I just like having a podcast that's fun. I don't need to, it's something to take away from everything else in the day. There's a lot going on everywhere and we are fed all this information constantly. It's nice to take a little break and just have some fun with cryptids. Just something that's enjoyable, something that takes the mind off the day. With that said, I'm telling you, things are happening. Things are happening every day. Keep an eye to the sky. And if you happen to end up in the Palatinate region of Germany or Pennsylvania, which, I mean, for a lot of my listeners, that's probably going to be a more reasonable spot they'll end up in. Keep an eye out, because you're in Elwetritsch country.